Gentleman from McCracken.
Mr. Speaker, I yield to the lady from Jefferson 32 for explanation of the bill and motion thereon.
Chair recognizes the lady from Jefferson 32 for explanation of the bill and a motion thereon.
My father was an alcoholic. I spent most of my young adulthood trying to unpack having been raised and becoming an adult child of an alcoholic. I worked on nurturing my inner child. I learned about my roles in my dysfunctional family. I was a caregiver and a hero, imagine that. And I addressed the addictions that I had that I inherited from my father. But the problem was, my father was self-medicating a severe mental illness. Children in families that are dysfunctional learn very early to keep secrets. They try to protect themselves from the shame of living in a dysfunctional family. Stigma is the judgment of others that enables that shame and encourages those secrets. While the stigma of being a family member of someone with an alcohol addiction has minimized through groups like Al-Anon that my mom participated in when I was a child, stigma related to mental health issues has not. And for me, it was to a point where even upon deep reflection about what had happened in my childhood, I still had no idea that a mental health disorder was at the foundation. HB 305 establishes a Kentucky mental health flag. In doing so, we bring awareness to and attempt to reduce the stigma for those of us who have a mental illness. Awareness like that could have helped me to realize how I had inherited my father's illness and how I most likely would pass it on to my children. Suicide is the second leading cause of death for our youth. 1 in 7 high schoolers and 1 in 5 middle schoolers has suicidal ideations. We have a very serious public health crisis. Molly Jones, the founder of the Pete Foundation, who spoke in our committee last week, discovered that her son, Pete Jones, had struggled with mental illness for 10 years before she became aware of it. 10 years of missed interventions that could have prevented his death by suicide at the age of 23. The flag was created by the Pete Foundation in collaboration with over 100 mental health agencies, care providers, artists, graphic designers, and community members to convey support for all efforts in mental health. It is the collective desire of those who developed the flag that it should become a global symbol for supporting all mental health initiatives and all those affected by mental illness. It is a representation of shared identity and commitment. Green is known as the official mental health awareness color. Yellow represents hope, happiness, and renewal. The flag's different shades of color, from dark green to yellow, represent both a personal journey from a dark place to a place of hope and happiness, as well as our collective efforts to bring the topic of mental health out of the darkness and into the light. The curved shape for each color represents an embracing of those suffering mental illness and an acceptance of our mental health as a community focus. I'm flying my mental health flag in honor of my best friend's brother, David Block, who took his own life by suicide at the age of 44 after living with schizophrenia for 20 years. I move for passage of HB 305.
Question before the body is passage of House Bill 305. Is there any discussion? Chair recognizes the lady from Jefferson 44 for discussion of the matter.
May I ask the sponsor a question?
You may.
Thank you. Lady from Jefferson, I believe this is your first bill.
Lady
It
from
is.
Jefferson 32.
Yes, it is.
Will she yield to a second question?
She will yield to another question.
Can you explain the infield fly rule?
Lady from Jefferson, can you repeat?
Lady from Jefferson, can you explain the infield fly rule?
Lady from Jefferson 32.
Lady from Jefferson, that's a very good question. I was a gymnastics coach and not a baseball coach, so I can tell you what a flyaway is, but I certainly cannot explain anything about baseball.
Lady from Jefferson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Jefferson 48 for discussion of the matter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to commend the lady from Jefferson 32 for bringing this to our attention, and she articulated quite well, I guess, just as on the surface in terms of statistics when it comes to mental health issues and so forth, and I appreciate her testimony and standing up and the things that she's gone through, as well as other people have gone through some situations, if they stood up on this floor to express their opinions and thoughts and so forth. So I just want to commend you for all your efforts and appreciate, and once again, I do appreciate this body moving the needle for mental health issues. Thank you.
Chair recognizes the lady from Jefferson 34 for discussion of the matter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just to speak briefly on the bill.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to commend the lady from Jefferson 32 because this is so important that we get this out to folks and reduce or get rid of the stigma of mental illness. And usually substance abuse, alcoholism are folks who are self-medicating. And sometimes they have such a stigma that it's difficult to come out to seek help. Recently, I don't watch much football, especially pro football, but the owner of the Indianapolis Colts is launching a campaign called Stop the Stigma, and especially among all of the, he-men of the NFL, I thought that was so important. So I just commend you, and let's move this forward. Thank you.
Question before the body is passage of House Bill 305. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, clerk will sound the chimes. Those in favor vote aye. Those opposed, nay. And the roll call is open for your vote. Chair recognizes the lady from Grayson for explanation of a vote not to exceed 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I take my yes vote in memory of Jenna Ray Glasscock. Jenna was a brilliant attorney from Grayson County who had a mission to protect and advocate for women and children. She founded Tri-County CASA, court-appointed special advocates for Grayson, Breckenridge, and Meade counties. Jenna lost her life to suicide on October 3rd, 2017 at the age of 32. Thank you, lady from Jefferson 32, for bringing this legislation to the floor. It's much appreciated.
Have all members voted? Does any member wish to change or explain their vote? Clerk will take the roll. Being 96 members voting aye, no members voting nay, House Bill 305 is passed. Lady from Jefferson.
Move for clincher.
Without objection, clincher is applied.